Hello everyone, welcome to PSC Collegiate English. Today let us discuss major and minor cultural theorist. Cultural studies is a multidisciplinary genre of theories. In one way or another, cultural theory overlaps almost all the theory. We have so many theories like Marxism, we have structuralism, we have that reader-oriented theories, we have narratology, we have post-structuralism, post-modernism, post-colonialism. So, cultural studies is a recent development that has developed in the 20th century. That is given more importance. Even if you look at the research trend nowadays, more people are interested in studying the cultural industry, culture of lands, culture of academics, everything. So the prime focus of nowadays research trend goes to cultural studies. So in one way or another, the cultural theorists are from different genres of theory. Like some are from structuralism, some are from Marxism. So we cannot say that for cultural studies there are separate sort of experts. The cultural theorists, the already existing theorists, they have also contributed their part to cultural studies. That is why there are so many cultural theorists. So I have tried to bring videos describing some 5 or 6 cultural theorists in this present video. Let's quickly move on to the first theorist. The first one that I am discussing today is Theodor Adorno. Adorno lived from 1903 to 1969. The German-born Theodor Adorno was a key figure of the Frankfurt School that later relocated to the United States under the threat of the Nazis. Adorno explores culture through a combination of Marxist and psychoanalytic theory. To argue that commodity culture is a form of mass deception that generates standardized reactions that affirms the status quo. Here, Adorno and his friend Horkheimer, they have co-written so many essays, and one of them is Culture Industry Reconsidered. In that, Adorno says that commodity culture, this culture itself is the commodity of the society, and culture, it tries to, by marketing culture, the society tries to have a standardized standardized product. Now, by saying that this is culture, one is manipulating the people to think that this is how you should behave, this is how you should dress, this is how you must act at all occasions. So, culture itself is a commodity that is being marketed, and by marketing culture, what these people are getting? By marketing culture, they are creating a standard form. Now, that is why Adorno says that commodity culture is a form of mass deception. They are deceiving the people, ordinary people. But he opines that, by contrast, critical art for Adorno is that which is not oriented to the market but challenges the standards of intelligibility of a reified society. Adorno says that critical art is something which must improve the standards of intelligibility of the society. If he is distinguishing between the pure art and something of culture that is commodified, that is being sent into the market. Let me explain this by a small example, by TV serials. If we see 80% of the TV serials, the serials would be describing lives of the rich people. They would be showing the sophisticated society, they would be showing their luxuries. So in one way, that is the product of commodity culture. Culture is being marketed. So in one way, these serials are sending a message that people should try to be rich. Maybe people should try to imitate the standard of living of those people, of rich people, of sophisticated people. They must try to imitate them in their manner of dressing, in their manner of behaving, in the manner of income. So in one way, the culture, that is, culture is being commodified, culture is being marketed. So this is the point. Now, Adorno has written essays like Culture Industry, Enlightenment as Mass Deception, He has written yet another essay along with Horkheimer, Culture Industry Reconsidered. Moving on to the next cultural theorist, that is Louis Althusser. As I told you, cultural studies is interdisciplinary. So, Louis Althusser is famous as a Marxist philosopher. But then even he has contributed, or we can say that when it comes to cultural studies tries to find out what different theorists belonging to different periods of time has said about culture, and that is compiled together to as a genre called cultural studies. Althusser was a Marxist philosopher and theorist of the French Communist Party who is associated with the attempt to produce a structuralist Marxism. His central influence within cultural studies was the argument that a social formation was constituted by a complex his central influence within cultural studies was the argument that a social formation was constituted by a complex overdetermined relationship between different autonomous levels of practice. In particular, he was a significant figure in cultural studies' break with economic determinism and granting of autonomy within theory to the levels of culture and ideology. Now, Althusser, he gave importance to the levels of practice, and Althusser has become an important, his theory has contributed in a cultural studies break with economic determinism, that is yet another term, and granting of autonomy within theory to the levels of culture and ideology. Initially, all these things were studied together, but Althusser opined that these must be examined differently. Economic determinism must be examined differently, culture and ideology. We all know about state ideology and all. So, all these things must be separately studied. This was the idea of Althusser. Now, he is talking about political culture. The point, we all know that Althusser is a Marxist and structuralist. So, his ideas have contributed to political cultural studies. His notable ideas are epistemological break, overdetermination, ideological state apparatus, interpellation. So, all these terms or jargons are associated with Althusser. Moving on to the next critical theorist, Lyn Ang. Ang's pioneering study of the way an audience reads television, watching Dallas, became one of the cornerstones of active audience stream within cultural studies. Please note, active audience is a term in cultural studies that must be explained in much detail. So, that I will do in yet another video. Here, Ang has argued that she has written a book called Watching Dallas. Now, Watching Dallas is a soap opera and a melodramatic imagination. Now, about that, Ang has written her critical comments. Her central argument is that Dallas viewers are actively involved in the production of a range of responses that are not reducible to the structure of the text. Subsequent to this study, Ang has continued to write widely on the themes of media, culture, migration, and globalization. She has contributed to maintain a substantial empirical emphasis in her work that includes an interest in ethnicity and migrant culture in Australia. Ang is a professor of cultural studies and director of the Centre of Cultural Studies at the University of Western Sydney. Now, coming to her work, Watching Dallas, as I told you, this is a soap opera and melodramatic imagination. The work studies how an audience experiences pleasure in a soap opera using replies to 42 viewers to an advertisement placed by Ang. Now, her ideas are from the fields of media, cultural consumption, audiences, identity, politics. Let us look at the next cultural theorist. The next one is Mikhail Bakhtin. As I told you, cultural studies is interdisciplinary. That is why Mikhail Bhaktin, who is known for heteroglossia and all, come under cultural studies. Bakhtin was a critical of formalism and instead conceives of language as diverse, living, action-oriented phenomena where meaning arises out of dialogic relationship between speaker and interlocutors. Heteroglossia is Bakhtin's term for multi-voiced workings of language and culture that constitute the field of science in which there is a struggle over meaning. For Bakhtin, the Renaissance carnivalesque, as documented by Rabelais, is a manifestation of heterogeneity of culture and the impulse to resist the official languages of the powerful. Here, Bakhtin's the four terms that are associated with Bakhtin's, that is in some way connected to culture studies. That is heteroglossia, that is multiple voices. That is you must not interpret book in one single voice. You must try to analyze the other perspectives from the narration as well as from the reader's point of view. That is heteroglossia, multiple voices. Coming to carnivalesque, we all know what is a carnival. So, Rabelais's carnivalesque, that was documented by Bakhtin. So, that shows the heterogeneity of culture. Now, culture studies is multidisciplinary. Therefore, culture studies can be analyzed from multiple variety of perspectives. Now, this is the point that we associate with Bakhtin. His important terms like heteroglossia, he is a formalist. That means he is giving importance to the form of the text. The form, formalists give importance to the form of the written words. Now, in that, even if it is written by an author from one particular period, it must be looked at from different perspectives. Similarly, culture must be looked at from different perspectives. Moving on to the next cultural theorist, Roland Barthes. When we hear the name of Roland Barthes, we immediately strike off death of the author, right? So, Roland Barthes lived from 1915 to 1980. Roland Barthes, the French writer, critic, teacher and theorist Roland Barthes exerted a very significant influence on the development of cultural studies, particularly in its involvement in its movement from culturalism to structuralism during the 1970s. His work was instrumental in assisting cultural thinkers to break with the notion of the text as carrier of transparent meanings. In his idea of death of the author, so what does Roland Barthes say? Roland Barthes means that once a book is written, the author's role is over. Now, the audience, the reader has to come in front, and their opinion, their views, their perspective matter. This is what he meant. Texts are constructed with science in social context. Central to Barthes' work is the role of science in generating meaning and framing the way texts are read. Thus, he explored the way that the naturalization of connotative meaning enable that which is cultural to appear as pre-given universal truth, which he called myth. He famously declared death of the author as a way of illustrating the argument that meaning does not reside with individual writer, but rather with the interplay between wider structures of cultural meaning and the interpretative acts of the readers. The readers might come from different cultural backgrounds, and based on their backgrounds they might be reading a book. That is why Roland Barthes becomes important for cultural studies. So that is it for this slide, guys. I would be making more videos about more cultural theorists. If you want somebody in particular, please do mention in the comment box. Or if you want me to deal with the literary terms or genres, or do you want me to simplify my explanation, do let me know. Thank you so much.